Hi there, Björkman here, author of Step-by-Step Mixing and founder of Audio Issues, and I'm here to help you confidently finish your mixes so that you can be proud to release your records and your music. So today we're going to be talking about the 7 simple mixing tips to improve your tracks and avoid complications. Mixing is already complicated enough, and there's no real need to make things more complicated than they need to be. Before we continue, please make sure you like and subscribe. And if you want my 7-step mix cheat sheet to help make your mixes translate to every speaker system, go to mixfinisher.com and download it there. All right, so let's get started. So when you start mixing, I hope you've recorded your tracks very well. And now it's time to mix your song. So sometimes mixing can be overwhelming. You can spend hours and hours working on jumping from one track to another. And if you don't have any real focus on what you're doing and in what order or have a system of any sort, you'll quickly lose track of time and you'll waste that time, because at the end of the day, you won't have a finished mix to show anybody or get revisions on or listen to on other speaker systems. You're basically just chasing your tail down a rabbit hole, and we don't want that. And here's what I want to give you today, my 7 steps to get to a great mix very quickly. So first off, let's talk about mix preparation using groups and buses. When you first open up your project, and let's assume that you're just starting from scratch on a mix, you want to sort the tracks. If your tracks are in disorder, you'll have trouble knowing which track is which track you worked on, and you'll waste time scrolling up and down looking for that guitar track or that solo or that vocal. So usually I sort things in a very orderly and systematic manner. I have drums first, kick, snare, and then if there are doubles, there's maybe there's a kick sample or a kick in, kick out. Basically, I route them, or I put them together, so it's kick, snare, hi-hat, if there is one, toms, and then overheads, and then room mics last, if there are any. As you can see in this session, which is Rachel Nisbet's Orlando, which is a really, really great song you should check out. There are no hi-hats, and there's also not a room sound or a room mic, and that's fine. Then bass, then I have guitars of some sort. Sometimes it's acoustic guitars, and then electric guitars after that. And then in this case, I have pianos and an organ, and then some lead vocals. So making sure that everything is in order is a great way to get started. And then from there, I tend to simplify the mix, so I create groups and buses. In this case, as you can see, my mix template is over here, and there are groups and buses and tracks for all of the instruments over here. So the kick that has 2 buses or 2 tracks is routed into one, so that's simplified by 1. Same with the snare. In this case, there's 3 snare tracks, and I put that into 1 snare track here. And I use static mixing and volume to figure out what the blend I want on the 1 fader here. So a good way to do that, and that's the next tip, so we're not going to jump ahead. And then the toms are separate, as you can see, toms and then overheads, and then all this gets routed to the drums. And then the bass is the same. I tend to route it to this bass track, even though it's only 1 bass track in this case. But if there's a DI bass and an amp, then it's good to route those together. And then the same goes for acoustic guitars, electric guitars. So when you create subgroups and buses, things just become easier and simpler to navigate, and it saves up a lot of time. It allows you to simplify your mix, control the volume of many tracks with just 1 fader. As you can see for the drums, if I mix the drums together and then I think the drums are a little bit too loud, I just have to move it up and down with 1 fader instead of trying to find a rebalance again with throughout the entire drum, all the different drum mics that are on the actual drums. And then from there, you start listening, because we're going to have to listen to the song if we're going to figure out how to mix it and make it sound great. So you want to listen to the song and maybe find the busiest part of the song, because that's where you want to create your static mix. And that's step number 2, is getting a great static mix. So what I would do is I would just find the final section of the song and then start mixing there. And I only get a good static mix on the faders. So if we ignore the fact that this is a finished mix and just think we're starting from scratch, I will start massaging these faders in place until there's a good balance going that I really dig. So I use the 1 dB rule. I move things in increments of 1 dB to make it, sound as good as I want it to, as I think it should sound, compared to the music that I've been listening to and the references and the feel of the song from the artist or whoever recorded the song. So please don't overlook this part, because I cannot stress how important this is. Mixing has a lot to do with just setting levels. EQ, compression, reverb, and effects, they're just the polishing and the fine tuning. Setting levels is critical for the quality of your final mix, because you get all these combined tracks together in one whole, and they are at the exact same level relative to each other to make the song sound good. So just play with the volume faders, try to achieve a good balance between the instruments. Don't touch any panning knobs at this instance. I mean, you can if you want, honestly, if you're doing things and you're not a complete newbie and you just want to experiment, go nuts. But it's a good thing to have a systemized process in place. And then two final things on getting a static mix or mixing just with levels. I would recommend mixing in mono and mixing quietly, and try not to overload the master fader as you are mixing, because you don't want to get a mix too hot immediately. There's no real reason to do that, so you should always leave some headroom. So now at this point, we have a good mix, and we should apply EQ to get clarity. And I would recommend, in my case, I have on my mix template, I have EQs and compression already set up. So if you have a mix template, all the power to you. That's a great way to save time too. But if you just are mixing things on the individual tracks, you can just put an EQ on every track. Let's assume that we were doing that, and we would just do something like that, and we just put a Pro Q2 on every track, and then we'd use EQ to create separation between the instruments while you're mixing the static mix. And then from there, you can add a compressor. And this is not going to be a lesson on compression or EQ, but these two processors are your best friends when it comes to getting a good mix going. This will help you create separation between your instruments so that you can hear everything as clearly as you want to hear it. And then compression will help tame the dynamics, add some punch, and sort of hug and glue the mix together, or those tracks together. Once you've done that, you apply reverb. So let's assume that this is all done, and I've EQ'd and compressed every track. I've done that here, but in just a different way. There's a EQ here, compressor here, there's a compressor here, there's an EQ here, and there's variations of the same theme in the mix template that you see here. And then from there, you apply reverb or delay to get a sense of space. I have my instrument reverb and my vocal space reverb and sometimes my drum reverb separate, and I use them as individual auxiliary returns or effects returns, and I just simply send from the track that I want to add reverb to, I will send that track to this reverb effects channel, and then add that channel into the mix. And then from there, you want to use panning to go stereo. In this case, I have the overheads hard left and hard right. The toms are panned slightly, and then the piano is panned hard left and hard right. And then these grouped guitars are grouped to here. The acoustic guitar is in the middle, and the electric guitar is on the left or on the right. I mean, so there's not a ton of panning going on, but it is enough to create a slightly wider space. And then finally, the seventh step to my simple mixing tips to a greater mix without being overwhelmed is just to experiment, get fancy, use fun effects and automation too. Automation is a powerful tool to make things move in the mix. I think I didn't use a lot of automation in this mix. There's really only just this quick level adjustment here because these phrases were slightly louder than the other, and they jumped out through the mix. So overall, this was a very well performed song, really well recorded. So didn't need a lot of automation, but it has a few effects, has a lot of space, and fun things like that. So if you follow those steps, just to repeat, you prepare your mix by using groups and buses to simplify. You get a great static mix just with your faders and your volume. And then you apply EQ to get clarity. You apply compression to get punch. And then you apply reverb to give a sense of space. And then you use panning to go stereo. Panning here is the 6th step, but it could also be the 2nd or the 3rd, doesn't really matter. And then get fancy with automation and effects. And then just to close things off, I'm just going to play this song and just to close off the video. So hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found it useful. This should have given you a good quick system to follow when you are mixing your music. So try following it in your next mix and let me know how you did. Before you leave, please like and subscribe. And if you want my mix finisher formula to get your mixes sounding great on every speaker system, go to mixfinisher.com and download it there. Once again, I am Björkvin from Audio Issues, author of Step by Step Mixing, How to Create Great Mixes Using Only 5 Plugins. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching.